Hello, everyone, and welcome to the monthly meeting of the Legislative Review Committee. Today is Tuesday, May 16th, and we're in City Hall Conference Room 301. I'm happy to have everyone here. So let's start off this meeting with an approval of the Thursday, April 13 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve those?
Move to approve those minutes.
And a second?
Second.
Good. Great. All right. You're there. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Wonderful. Great. Do we have any public input?
We do.
All right. So we're going to move on to the. Oh, she does. Okay. All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annie K. Robinson, and I'm so excited to be here with you all today. In the fall, I will be returning to UGA as a second-year student, majoring in international affairs. I'm originally from Wrightsville, Georgia, which is about 2.5 hours southeast of here. Very small town out in the middle of nowhere. So coming to UGA, I knew I wanted a great, county that had a good sense of community, and Athens-Clarke County 100% does that. As a college student myself, I understand there's a lot of pressures and stresses that go along with being a college student. And one of those that, a lot of students have, veered towards is vaping. Research shows that there's been a rapid increase in vaping in college students. Over 1 in 4 are using. And so this is a statistic that we're wanting to get ahead of, or wanting to combat. And so I think it's very important that we allow educational programs in elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, get to those younger kids to be able to combat that issue, because the healthy habits you learn from such a young age will be with you the rest of your life. There are a lot of misconceptions with vaping, that it's not harmful to you or it's not harmful to the people around you. And that's totally not true. Research proves that. Vapes hold a lot of, not so like nicotine, but also lead, nickel, and cancer-causing things that can lead to diagnoses such as like popcorn lung. And that's one thing that's it's very hard to overcome once you get to that stage. So being able to educate others on that is very important. So being able to educate people and also get people like you, county commissioners, involved in this is so important. It means a lot to me. I'm a person in this community. I come back every single year, and I'll live the next couple of years in Athens. So being able to go along with that and get your involvement, it shows your overall, commitment to the well-being, and also just the health and the safety of people within this community. So thank you so much for letting me share today.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Yes.
There is a timer up there just in case you haven't seen it.
I'll be brief. I'm Annie Cook, and I'm from Piedmont Athens Regional, and I've been in Athens many times, but most recently since 1998, I was also here as a student. And I'm part of the support system for many committees of the American Heart Association. I've also benefited as a patient in the American Heart Association, as have everybody in my family. And what we find is that, so much I love about Athens is how we are forward thinking about the health of all the people here. And what I love is that we're so early to adopt the ordinance about smoking and trying to take that smoking out of all the bars and restaurants and move it outside. And of course, we'd like to keep on moving it, but in reality, we just want to protect those people. And the ordinance was not written when e-cigarettes were even around. And so it's only natural that I would think that we would add that ordinance or those exceptions and make sure that vaping of any kind also happens outside. Because these carcinogens are not anything that any of us want to put on our community. And so as a member of the healthcare organization that I'm so proud to be part of, but also as a community member, it's totally Athens style to do the right thing. And the right thing is to add this anti-vaping. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public input? Okay. Then we're going to move it on here. We will be coming back to the discussion of vaping and have a guest speaker, Laura Bracci from the American Heart Association. But first, we're going to have a review of the Chapter 401 Animal Control Ordinance and the work that staff has done and what they can report back to us. So I'm going to hand it over to our Assistant Manager, Nikki Jones.
Thanks, Commissioner Myers. At the last meeting, we talked about horse pet registration, and staff confirmed, first the ORC, some things that you might want to hear, surveys, data related to pet and owner stats, fees and costs, enforcement, state versus local, comparative analysis of other communities who have done certain pet registrations or something comparable, and budget impacts associated with the pet registration. So since that time, we've gone and tried to put together a survey for residents and vets, and it's been a little bit more challenging than we would have imagined. So we're working through creating the right questions for residents to answer. And Crystal has reached out to vets specifically to have a conversation with them, opposed to just sending them a survey, talking through certain questions with the vets. And I think she's been able to get in touch with maybe one or two of them. And, if y'all want to hear kind of the preliminary discussion she's had already, I think she can talk through that. My recommendation would be that we kind of wait to get all the information at once, but we can certainly talk about what she's heard at this point. As it relates to data, it's been really hard for us to get any data out there related to pet owners. There's just some anecdotal stuff out there, but we'll continue trying on that front. Now, Sherry has been able to get some information related to state and local enforcement activities. I think she's ready to speak to that, but again, my recommendation is to have all this information at once. However, if y'all want to hear about enforcement, I think Sherry's prepared to talk about that today. The comparative analysis has been a bit challenging as well. We have not had a great response from other communities who've done this. We reached out to a number of them. We've got some information, but we just can't get the full story on all of them. We're still working through that. And then the budget impacts, of course, is really tied to the comparative analysis. So we're hoping to have all of this information wrapped up in a bow for y'all at the next meeting, if that's okay. So I'm requesting that we have a little bit more time to put all this information together related to pet registration. The resident survey, if that's still something you guys think is important, please let us know, because that is taking a lot of time. We do think the vet survey is extremely important, and Crystal has a laundry list of vets that are in our community, and she's going to reach out to them one by one. And if you all want to hear about what some of the preliminary information we've heard from the vets are, Crystal's here to speak to that.
Thank you. Crystal, I'll turn it over to you.
So I can tell you that the conversations, I have a couple meetings next week with a couple of veterinarians, and then I have another meeting with one of our veterinarians later this week, and the conversation that I've had with one veterinarian, South Athens, was very positive. They were in full support of a licensing program. They actually thought it would be really beneficial for even people that don't live in Athens-Clarke County, which their plan, I think, would be to sell the tag to just everybody. And even if you don't live in the county and you get that tag, yes, it would be registered in our DocuPet or Pet Leader database, but anybody can still look that information up online. So it would still be another way for that animal to go home. And they also found what we find in our shelter is a lot of their clients that find animals bring them to them, and there's either no microchip information, no collar, a tag, or if they do have information, it is widely outdated. So again, this would hopefully help solve some of those issues. The other thing I know that you guys had asked was for the county's cost. So this wouldn't be a brochure cost, but it's $4.20 for a 1-year registration, and then $8.20 for a 3-year registration. Now that's when we were talking to the company, that may change, but that's around the cost of what it would be for us, no matter what kind of registration it was. So, and that's kind of all I have as far as the vet's offices. Like Nikki said, we have reached out to the different counties. I think part of the issue is Athens-Clarke County is very unique and we have really good data. I think there's a lot of shelters that don't do a good job of that, because I think they're so engrossed in taking care of the animals and just, running with the mission. They don't necessarily stop and think about all the pieces. And I will say, I'll just thank Josh for that, because he's a data-driven person. And as the manager, that I answer to, or the assistant manager that I answer to, Josh is always telling me about data. So I know that we have great data. So I think for the counties that we're reaching out to, I'm trying to do some more digging with the companies that they actually utilize to do the licensing with. And I've been in contact with them. It's just we haven't been able to get anything solid yet. So still working on it. But it's high hopes that we'll get that.
Does anyone have any questions for Crystal? It's Josh. Josh.
Yeah, the question, it might be one for you, Nikki. You said that there's challenges getting a broader survey of the public set up.
I should clarify, sorry. We can there's no problem putting a survey out to the public. Yes, the challenge right now is for us to get the questions right and ask the questions in an appropriate way. So we're kind of working through the questions right now.
Setting aside that, am I understanding correctly that you all feel like you'd be prepared to bring back kind of a report and recommendation by our next meeting if we didn't have that to do?
Definitely. Don't get me wrong, I think resident input's really important too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll for sure should be through the veterinarians that I'm gonna be able to reach out to that are gonna be able to set aside a time for me. I think I should be able to get through those in the next couple of weeks. So I already have appointments and I have emails and messages into all the rest of them.
How much more time do you think would be needed for the?
I think by the next LRC meeting, we should be good to go. And that's if the resident survey is up for 2 weeks. If you want it out longer, we can do that.
The survey's out of 2 weeks. Yeah, like I said, the sense I got was when you were first speaking was that you don't have time to even get it up for next week.
You've been working on it this entire time, so.
So you are going to get our nod of approval, you're going to go ahead with a vet survey and a resident survey, is that clear?
So the way that I'm doing the vet survey is I have a list of questions I am asking so that it's all the same questions, but it is more in a conversation format because it is a big topic and they usually have a lot of questions besides like the 6 or 10 questions we put on the screen. Ends up having a lot more questions and I want to be able to answer those for them. So we are having a conversation-based survey, but I do ask all the initial same questions.
How many vets are there?
So veterinarians themselves, about 35 to 40, and then vet practices, I think there's 18. So some practices I'm going to try to hit twice, one day for so many vets and one day for the other vets. And then I think there's going to be at least one practice that I don't know that I'll get past the office manager. I'm really dry. You have a good front desk person, so but yeah, I have a good feeling that we'll get quite a bit of it.
Now, if the LRC wants to give us more time, we certainly will take that.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, based on the conversation and the comments that Blaine made, in the work session, that we kept piling too much stuff on the manager's office. Maybe if we gave y'all a little bit more time.
Melissa?
I'm just trying to catch up. I apologize for missing the last meeting, and so I'm new to this topic. I haven't heard any mention of our valuable vet school and that being able to be a resource because they were coming from far away and might have some references. It seems like that would be a good network to move in.
So as far as the private practice, well, that's not private, but as far as the public practicing side of the EG of that college, that is one of the college or one of the veterinarians.
That's one year.
Yeah. As far as the school itself, they won't really have anything to do with registration, but their practice part, which essentially, caters to clients, would hopefully sell our, licenses and partake in that.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to understand is, I'm really not convinced that there's what problem we're trying to solve with this, because it sounds like if you've spayed your animal and you have rabies tags and it's chipped, I'm not sure where the registration's needed. And I'm just saying that as for best practices in the latest of the veterinary field, being able to get input from soon-to-be practicing vets on adding this I mean, I just got my 3-year rabies tag for my dog. I mean, I got 3 years of that tag, and if she's found, that tag is registered for her as well as her chip. So I'm trying to understand where the
So-
reasoning is.
So I will say that, generally speaking, if you have a tag on your dog in the middle of the night, those offices aren't gonna be open. So we're not gonna be able to call those offices to, like, if we are picking up an injured or stray dog or cat, especially if it's injured and it needs immediate medical care. So if we get an animal that has only a tag on, that's great, but there's no central database for that. So we can't look that up without getting on the phone with somebody. So if it's 2 a.m., I'm not gonna get you at home because I don't know, that tag doesn't lead anywhere. It leads to a clinic.
I understand that.
So as far as the microchip goes, I will tell you 90% of the animals that come into our shelter that are microchipped, that information leads nowhere. It leads to where it was implanted, which is the very first, it's like a one and done. Most people don't bother updating that, which is the problem that we're having. The next thing with the county license is because you have to renew it with your rabies certificate, so either on a 1-year or a 3-year basis, that information is, that more times likely to be updated. And if we pick up an animal with a county license, there will be a database that's universal that anybody, even if a citizen picks up your dog in the middle of the night, they'll be able to go onto a website, put in your animal's ID number, and be able to have your contact information to call you.
Gotcha. And so this information, as I'm being educated, is also very important for that survey, for it to be relevant, I think. So I think the time needed to make the survey, the educational component, as well as how likely are you to comply. I agree too with the, our 4-year residents, or 5, depending on, and that importance in the increase in the service animals, that making sure people understand the difference of that usage. I'm not sure, but I missed the information about how often you guys are finding these animals that need attention and reconnected with that. But it's a compliance thing. I think that there's probably a large bit of the community that would never let their dog out of their sight enough for that to happen. And then you've got the community that it takes them 3 days to realize their dog's gone. So I'm not sure how we're going to be able to capture the in-need pets registration.
Well, and I will tell you, a lot of the information that is current are people that have been into animal services. Like if you just got your dog out of jail and you click home, that information is current. So if we find that dog, which sometimes we do, sometimes very shortly thereafter, that information is current. And those are the ones that we're really finding are current because they've been to animal services and that information is up to date. The hope is that if we go to universal license, all of the vets across the board would sell that, and that would be the only thing they would sell. So that way, all of that information is available to anyone who finds a pet. We get more information because we will have our system as a resident finding a pet. You only get the basic information that you're allowing other people to see, but it still gives you the availability to get your pet home much quicker than us having to take it to a vet's office. And the bigger issue becomes, you're right, there are some people who will never see their pets because they are never going to get out of their sight. However, car accidents happen. We had a little dachshund that the only reason that dog got home didn't have a microchip, didn't have a license or a tag on with a collar. The only reason is because the finder who brought it to UGA, who then brought it to us, reached out on a lost flyer on Facebook and said, hey, your dog is at Animal Services. And then they came and got it. Yeah, it was ejected from a car.
Yeah.
Nobody would have ever, that dog has probably not ever been onto those people's site except in that incident. So you just never know when it would come in handy. And hopefully that peace of mind will give some residents, the want to do it. And then, obviously there's probably gonna be some people that would never comply.
Yeah, well, it's good for me because I was like, I'm chipped. If it's chipped, I am good. And but this I know, right?
Yeah.
And then let me ask another question. This is only county specific. So if that wreck happened and my dog's running loose in another county,
It's that information with our tag. They could still look that information up and still get your information.
Okay.
Yeah, or it would say, it would also say like Clarke County residents, so then they could call us and say, hey, do you have any more information on,
Right.
this
Yeah.
resident?
So I think that the survey should be capturing a good bit of, this newbie stuff, as well as, for that compliance and to help us promote this, because it is a lot of work
Yeah.
for you putting it together, and then when it actually happens, and then for us to be fining people for their pet registration, just making sure we're clear on the service that it provides.
Yeah, I think all those questions you asked were excellent in terms of getting those answers on that form, including the question you didn't follow. I don't know what the answer is, but I just paid my three years. Am I gonna have to go in now and do something extra, or can I do it in 3 years? Is it gonna be on a rolling initiation?
I think that when we first talked about this, we were obviously give everybody, was it 60?
I think 60, yeah, 60.
To get, but the hope is that when veterinarians go to sell you your license or your tag, now the tag is really included in the vaccine.
Right.
Is they would just include that, the price would just go up $8 or $10, and that would be just included, and you wouldn't really have to purchase something separate. So,
But I was just telling, that's why you need to have the vets buy-in, because they're really gonna be the ones that's gonna be administering them.
yeah.
Do we know what the annual cost to operate this program would be? Will the fines, collection of fees offset the cost for the software, or is this gonna be an additional cost in y'all's operating budget?
No, so software is free. There's no cost for the software.
Okay.
And it's just per license. So the only cost that we're gonna have, there's a one-time setup fee. I think it depends on what company you go with. I think it's between $100 and $400. That's a one-time setup fee. Everything else they do, because they make their money by license sold. So their goal is going to be to send out those reminders like, hey, you have a dog, you have to get it licensed, or hey, your dog is coming up due, or your cat's coming up due. That's how they're gonna make their money, and they make their money per registration.
Is it gonna cost us anything to enforce this, or it's not really gonna be something enforced?
Well, we would enforce it, obviously, in per door, we would go door to door, but that's never gonna happen. So, we would enforce it just like we're enforcing the rabies vaccines now. So if we have a call with you, and we would ask to see your rabies license to make sure you're in compliance. If not, if the situation warrants, hopefully get you in compliance. Sometimes that's not, that the situation isn't gonna warrant that. You're gonna have to receive a citation, especially if your animal's involved in a bite or an attack or, something, much more serious like that, so. So I don't think our enforcement per se will go up. The only thing that I can imagine is maybe some of the dog parks, we might have some more calls about dog parks not having county licensing, which would be fine. I mean, I think we would be able to handle that.
Thank you. Do we want to hear anything from our attorney?
I do. I always like to hear from you.
Right, it wasn't clear whether or not you felt like it was appropriate now, and I do want to make sure we leave plenty of time for our guests. So, but it's 1:25, so I think we're good.
I think it's up to you all. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I think that, having looked at Fulton and DeKalb County's ordinances, I think they're very similar. I think there was a question about enforcement. I'd say that all of them, let's say those two plus our proposal would treat these as standard ordinance violations, so we would still handle them in that quasi-criminal manner, just because that is by far the easiest way to resolve that. And that also means that they can certainly be dismissed as part of a larger case once someone gets that registration. The only thing I'll add from a policy perspective, not that this is my interest per se, but just that these are some things that I think we've talked about in the past, and what the task force, or what we're going to call the group that worked on these, is interested in, is that this is a way, if, for instance, if registration is less expensive, for animals that are already spayed and neutered. It's a way to encourage spays and neuters. There's a lot of people I see that come through the courts who just are ambivalent. And so giving them that discount or some kind of incentive that helps them move towards that path would be good. It also would help us with backyard breeding and trying to limit that, which is a really severe problem. And then I know that Crystal said it, but I just want to really emphasize it. A real challenge for us is that, say I'm out and I find a dog. I don't want to take it to animal services because I know they're full or whatever. And I'd like to do the right thing and get this animal to its owner. And there is no way for me to do that after hours because nobody can even scan for a microchip. And so having some other alternatives that make it easy for the public to get their neighbor's dog home, each of their neighbor 2 streets down, would really reduce resources. I think, I would argue that it would for animal services and help alleviate some of those space issues that we deal with.
It's an improving the Good Samaritan approach.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an example if it's helpful. A friend of mine just found a purebred schnauzer. There is no way on God's green earth that schnauzer was just dumped by someone. I will not believe that that's possible. And a neighbor even thought they knew what house it was. They could never find it. They found it after 5. Their dog is dog aggressive. They had no way to save it, so my friend's husband ended up sleeping in a separate room with this dog
To save.
keep them separate because there was no good option. And then they didn't want to bring it to animal services because they're very much, I don't want to bring it to a kill shelter. Meanwhile, there is never a chance I think that a schnauzer is going to be euthanized at a shelter. I mean, but they just conceptually could not, live with themselves for doing that. And if it had just been easy for them to find the owner, they could have returned it. And actually, to this day, I still don't think I found the owner, despite filing loss reports and everything. And so I know someone's looking for that schnauzer, but it was listening.
Yeah.
Schnauzer is listening.
Well, that's really helpful for me to bridge the gap between what I know is one thing and the future of being able to, because the helper people do want help.
Yeah.
And they will hold on to that until, and it's kind of a little nightmare, but thanks for sharing that, because like you say, the other families
Yeah.
disappeared.
It's just a challenge.
Great, so do we have do you have enough direction here?
I think so. We want to make sure we bring the full picture. Resident survey, that survey, comparative analysis. Because what's really important here also is the effectiveness and efficiency of a program like this, right? So we want to hear how it's worked in other places and be able to present to y'all, that to y'all as well. We do have enough direction, and my question would be, when do you want us to come back? Is it next month? Is it the month after that?
Do you have enough time to come back next month? I mean, because otherwise it's really not going to be till August.
I think August would be great.
Yeah.
On further action to this until our August meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Second? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay, we'll hold this till August then.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You'll do your information gathering.
And I think that's going to be perfect timing for the highest population of our community for that survey to be rolling out in the fall, giving us time to promote it and then have it out. I think that's good timing.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the updating the indoor smoking ordinance to include vaping products. And I'm gonna let Assistant Manager Jones give us some introductory remarks, and then we're having a presentation from the American Heart Association, who have already spoken with the mayor, more Bracci?
It's actually Bracy. I'm the family goes by Bracci, so you're
Okay,
fine.
okay. And then we'll hear from Laura, and we can have some discussion as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers, and I would lead with very little remarks here, other than the fact that I know the Attorney's Office is taking a look at this as well, so the Attorney's Office is prepared to speak to it a little bit after the American Heart Association talks about it. But one thing that we're talking about here is essentially outlawing vaping indoors across the county. And I think other places have done these things. There just may be some things that those other places have not considered. So what we're doing here is trying to be intentional about the entire situation. And I'm glad that we have the American Heart Association here to speak to us today, because obviously this is a health concern. We just want to make sure we get it right. So with that, pass it.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so I'm Laura Bracy. I'm the Government Relations Director for the Heart Association. And I have to say, I also really appreciate the previous conversation because I have a well-loved dog who's a jumper. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah,
It
she
happens
gets
all the time.
But I'm happy to be here to talk a little bit about the importance of updating and the opportunity to update the smoke-free air ordinance for Athens-Clarke County. And let me tell you what I'm at.
Sure, whichever your preference, I can.
Okay, yeah, I go through things pretty quickly.
Whatever you want.
So just to give you a little bit of information, just so we're all like laying the groundwork here, some stats, and you probably know this. I mean, secondhand smoke is bad. It causes immediate adverse effects to your cardiovascular system. It increases your risk of stroke by 20 to 30%. And then when you think about secondhand aerosol, which aerosol is what comes off of an e-cigarette. It's not a vapor. It's not a harmless water vapor. But secondhand aerosol contains heavy metals, cancer-causing toxic chemicals, and fine particulate that can worsen heart and lung disease. So why does this matter? Why should you care about this? Well, there's no safe level of secondhand smoke. And what we believe is that everyone has the right to breathe secondhand smoke-free air and not secondhand air. Everyone has the right to breathe smoke-free and aerosol-free air. And really what this comes down to is that we really believe that no one should ever have to choose between their health and a paycheck. So really protecting workers and their places of work. And just point out a little bit about the disparity that exists. There is a disparity that exists, and while Athens-Clarke County has a pretty strong ordinance, this is the Georgia data, but I did want to point this out to you because not everybody is impacted at the same level. So hospitality workers and entertainers have the highest rates of exposure to secondhand smoke and aerosol in the workplace. And then when it comes to race and ethnicity, there's a disparity there as well. Over 50% of non-Hispanic Black women were exposed to secondhand smoke in their workplace compared to 30% of non-Hispanic white and Hispanic women. So for our state, just to give you a kind of picture about what the state looks like, who is currently protected. Georgia passed a Smoke-Free Air Act in 2005, but there were many, many, many exemptions that leave most people exposed in their workplace. Well, not most, but a lot of people. And these exemptions include any establishment that allows 18 and over, long-term private and semi-private rooms and healthcare facilities, private and semi-private rooms and long-term care facilities, hotels and motels, and many more. And recently, I know we're talking about updating this to add vaping to your ordinance. When we initially talked to the mayor, this was prior to session. This session, the Smoke-Free Air Act was amended to update it to add vaping of tobacco products. So just want to point that out, and I'll touch on the opportunities that still exist. So for comprehensive, and one interesting thing about the Smoke-Free Air Act of 2005 is there's language in there that gives local municipalities the opportunity to go stronger than what the state does. So you have the opportunity to go stronger than the state. So when we look at comprehensive smoke-free in Georgia, we have 11 cities and counties that have gone above and beyond what the state does. And that is Savannah, which has been smoke-free for over 10 years, believe it or not. Atlanta, Augusta, Buena Vista, Chamblee, City of South Fulton, Morrow, Fuller, Chatham County, Doraville, and just last year we passed a comprehensive smoke-free policy in Gwinnett County that protects 1 million people. So in Athens, let's talk about what your current ordinance looks like. You passed an ordinance in 2005, and it really was a lot stronger than what the state passed at that time. And when you look at comprehensive, which there's an organization that's called Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights, and they're really the ones that kind of lead the way in this information, but they have analyzed all of the ordinances for every city, county across the country. Athens is considered to have 2 of the 3 components of what's needed for a comprehensive smoke-free air ordinance. You cover restaurants and you cover bars, which is amazing, but you're missing workplaces. So workplaces in totality. And when you look at the exemptions that are in your current ordinance, you exempt private and semi-private rooms in healthcare facilities. You exempt employee break rooms, hotels and motels, tobacco retail stores, and private clubs. And vaping is missing because, of course, in 2005, it did not even exist. And I bring this up about the state's definition of vaping because there's a lot of things that are being vaped. It's not just tobacco products, and I think that we have a definition that's much stronger than what the state did. Just to clear up any confusion. I mean, is it going to be like, oh, is that a tobacco product? Is that not a tobacco product? Is that a CBD? You know, so we have a definition for vaping that's really all encompassing, so there's not confusion about what the person is vaping.
Can I ask you for just a second?
Yeah.
Is that list of missing workplaces a comprehensive list of the workplaces we're exempting that we
Yes.
could be covering?
Yes.
And that matches the state also, doesn't it?
This was similar to the state. You, in 2005, just included bars in yours and took out the 18 plus. So you went really strong.
Mm-hmm.
That is the hardest part sometimes.
And the other places that were listed on your map, they all include those missing workplaces.
Yes. Yeah. They do not have these exemptions. Any other questions about this list? I know sometimes tobacco retail stores come up as a concern, but you know, we always say there's very few retail stores that you get to try before you buy. You don't go into a liquor store and drink a beer. You don't, you know, it's not, I mean, I might get into something at the grocery store if I'm starving, but you typically buy your product and you take it home to enjoy at your house or outside of the store. So.
Do you have examples? Sorry, last question.
Yeah, you're good.
I mean, are there examples of cities that have kept one thing on that list? For example, tobacco retail stores, but added all the rest?
Mm-hmm.
So you can still have your hookah lounge, but everything else has got to go, kind of thing.
Yeah, a lot of times there's an exemption that will exist for a business that is a part of their business model. So like you mentioned, a hookah lounge. Believe it or not, we looked at Athens, you don't seem to have a hookah lounge. It did.
A formal hookah lounge.
A formal, okay.
Just, I can think of who's going to start calling us
Yeah.
for this presentation. Yeah.
Yeah. And we did research it and we did not see a hookah lounge. I would argue that hookah lounges shouldn't exist at all based on your existing ordinance. Honestly, I don't know that should be a call you're getting because bars, I mean, you're not exempting them right now. They shouldn't exist, in my opinion. I probably should look to the lawyer. It does appear like you have cigar bars, again, that I don't know that they should exist based on your current ordinance, but I would encourage you, if that is something that you're looking to exist, that the definition is strong enough that it is a true cigar bar or a true hookah lounge, and it's not an establishment that's going to be able to have a box of cigars on a table and say, I'm a cigar lounge, now I'm exempt. Mm-hmm. So the definition, we encourage definitions that would have a sales threshold that would show that they truly are relying on that income for their business. 50% or more would be. All right.
Thank you.
And just really quick, just to kind of touch on this, I'm going to zoom through these. Comprehensive smoke-free, including the workplaces that's currently missing, really supports employees' health. A lot of times the people that are working in these establishments that are being exempt in these ordinances are people that are not given health insurance from their business. They have no paid sick leave. So it's just really important to support employees' health. I put a note on ventilation in here because you do have employee break rooms as an exemption. Even the American Society of Heating, Refrigerating, and Air Conditioning Engineers basically say ventilation does not work when it comes to secondhand smoke. It will not protect people. So that whole argument of, but we have a different ventilation system, it might smell a little better, but you are still inhaling those toxic chemicals that will damage your heart and lungs. Comprehensive smoke-free policies have been around literally for decades. Like, we have so much research on this, and the bottom line is that comprehensive smoke-free policies do not harm businesses. Time and time again, it shows that businesses are not harmed, and they're good for employees' health. So just a couple of business quotes that I wanted to share with you. A couple are from Savannah. Basically, the first says, "All these years and not one person has objected. It's been a total win-win. I would never want to go back. It made my husband healthier. It made our lives better." That's from a wife of a musician who played in the bars. And then really importantly, because you're exempting hotels and motels currently, I wanted to include these. One is from a CEO of Choice Hotels. Says, "The old school thinking was that hotels were accommodating a portion of their guests, but when you talk to smokers, they don't even want smoking rooms." The other is from a Wyndham Hotel Group brand senior VP. "Smoke-free environments in the U.S. are not only widely accepted, but they've also become the expectation. Going smoke-free in guest rooms creates significantly healthier surroundings where guests sleep and relax, and it also creates a cleaner room and extends the life of items like bedding, carpets, and window coverings." Just wanted to also point out that most the major hotel chains have all gone smoke-free. And this goes back, in my mind, really to a disparity when you look at the hotels that allow smoking. They're your lower cost economy hotels that people don't always have a choice to go to a nicer hotel. They're really looking for what they can afford. One of the things that really excites me about comprehensive smoke-free is that I think this is really, really cool, that once comprehensive smoke-free policies have been passed, that they have a protective and health impact on the community as a whole. So it's not just the people that are working. So there was a U.S. study that showed that heart attack hospitalizations for the community as a whole had a reduction over the 12 months after a comprehensive smoke-free policy was passed. And finally, just to kind of sum everything up, so what we hope that you will do is look at your ordinance and strengthen it, remove the exemptions, and add a strong vaping definition. But this is not an attempt to vilify smokers or vapers. It's not a judgment on someone's lifestyle choice. It's not an attempt to control business. It's not an attempt to ban all smoking, as much as the Heart Association would love that. And it's not an enforcement nightmare, but it will guarantee that all have a workplace that's smoke-free and aerosol-free. It protects patrons and visitors, it makes the healthy choice the easy choice, and it will ensure that all of your future businesses are smoke-free and aerosol-free. And that is it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do we have other questions for our guest?
That's well done, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any examples of communities in Georgia that have gone the step of banning the sale of tobacco products or vaping products altogether?
There's some campaigns to work on like banning flavors, but no one has done that in this state.
And is that because there's legislation prohibiting municipalities from doing so, or just that no one's gotten around to it yet?
I think it's just going to take a lot more work to get to the point where Georgia would be at a level where we would ban sale of flavors and menthol. California's done it. I'll just say that. But
Thank you again. So where do we want to go from here? Do we want to go to our attorney? Let's go to our attorney.
Sure. So I actually have a little bit of a question for you, and I think I may know your answer to this, but I'm a little concerned about the statute that allows us to be more restrictive, but then also says that are not in direct conflict in the chapter. Has your legal counsel given you guidance on that last clause, is how they interpret that?
We actually had that come up with Doraville, and we consulted with the Public Health Law Center, who has time and time again, said that the reason that, the reason that they go into that is actually to give more, the municipalities more, opportunities to go stronger. Even though it's so confusing that it came up before, but we did, and the Doraville has passed. We have not had, a smoke-free ordinance challenged at all. And they've been, like I said, Savannah's been smoke-free for over 10 years. I want to say that was our first.
Okay, and I think what I would just say to the commission, just to, or to the LRT, just so you're aware of it, is that, you know, she's absolutely right, that there is a statute, HCA section 31-12-A-12, that says, you know, that this chapter is cumulative, and by the chapter they mean the smoke-free Air Act, or whatever the official name is. And it says it does not prohibit the enactment of any other general or local laws, rules, and regulations of state or local governing authorities or local ordinances prohibiting smoking, which are more restrictive than this chapter, and that's what she's been focusing on. I have a little pause because the secondary clause that says or are not in direct conflict with this chapter. I think it would be much clearer if it said and. If it said and, I would say absolutely we can't do this. I don't know why they put this language in and use the word or, because I understand what you just said. It's very inconsistent. Because I think one interpretation would be to say that, unfortunately, there's another statute that lists all of these very specific exemptions, and there's an argument that we would be in violation of that by making these changes. Now, in fairness, the argument could be made about bars and restaurants because they are also exempted, as she mentioned earlier, if they're 18 older. And of course, that decision was made back in 2005. I was involved in that, so I don't know if this is something that commission considered when they made that decision, but certainly the legally safer option is to preserve as much of the exemptions that are listed in the state statute as possible. But, you know, she mentioned, as I looked, I don't know who's challenging these ordinances, and so I don't know. That may be just a risk that you all need to weigh as to whether you think someone's going to challenge it. Certainly think, given that the state has now changed that definition to include vaping, makes it easier moving forward in this general talk about vaping, because we're sort of following state law at that point. In terms of the definition, I see exactly what you mean about wanting to make it broader, so there's no question about what someone's vaping, whether it's tobacco. We might face a challenge there as well. If someone feels that I should be able to vape my insert, whatever, it's not tobacco that people are vaping, that may be legal, but I think we could probably articulate a rational basis for why we would move forward there. So I think it really depends on your appetite, and if I could get some direction today of what you all are interested in, then I could come back and give you some better guidance based on the draft that they have provided, and talking with Judd about, you know, potential risks.
Yeah, so it seems to me maybe we could focus on one that's going to be a bigger spot in our community. Hotels and motels stand out to me as being able to have a healthy effect on a larger number of employees that are servicing that room. I didn't realize how many were smoking rooms because I would always not ask for the smoking room. So I was naive in realizing that the workers, I thought that was a great visual of somebody going into the room where they have to work and clean for the next person who's also putting whatever in the air that they're smelling, inhaling. But, you know, that's the main one. I don't know. I think Toddler's Downtown Ballet is our only private club that I can think of, or the country club.
Yeah, private clubs include all sorts of things. So like it could be VFW or
Right.
like anything, any kind of members only.
And to me, that would be the harder one to affect. Just by virtue of the Moose Club, I think, like that. But what do you guys think? Is this the first time you guys have gone around with it? It's for me, the workplace. That's where I was dialed into for the restaurant and bar. When that happened, I was very supportive of the unified government doing that. and then the healthcare facilities, those, in the hotel. Stay down.
So as far as I understand, there's kind of two things we're tackling in tandem here. One is adding vaping for the definition. My understanding correctly that even though the state has updated their definition, we need to update our code to fall in line with that.
Feedback
Our
from
code
summer.
doesn't cover it without explicitly mentioning that. And then the other one is, what if any missing workplaces do we add to have a more comprehensive ordinance? So in my mind, maybe to get us past what seems to me to be low-hanging fruit, I would like to see us, I can make some motion if you'd like, Chair, to go ahead and add vaping to our definition, so we just get that out of the way. You're trying to move that back, and then we can maybe deliberate around the workplaces.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt the motion. I don't want to call for.
Do I have a second on that?
I have a question.
Also,
So the mayor asked us to update the indoor smoking policy to include vaping. Did he ask us to look at the other provisions too?
Yes, sir.
So if we start doing that, we're doing something more.
I was going to put out there that I will check in with the mayor to see if that is something that he wants us to address.
yeah, while we're at it,
Yeah, right.
So the only thing I wanted to ask about Phil's motion is just what definition of vaping do we want?
yes.
I would look to guidance from our American Heart Association representative for what they think the best definition is, and then choose to copy paste that.
We have one.
Does that work? Does that
No, that's fine. It's basically their definition of the states, and so whatever we prefer.
I'd like to trust the health experts on this one.
Mr. Ryan, do we have a second on that?
Yeah, I think, so I wouldn't know what to put all in there, so we can start with that, and then that way we're not trying to determine tobacco versus.
So then the motion on the floor is to have the attorney draft a update to include that definition of vaping in it with the definition as suggested by using the guidance of the American Heart Association.
Or banning indoor, and
Right.
as listed now, restaurants and bars, right?
Right.
And then you'll let us know if the mayor's gonna give us a little latitude.
On that, and then we can continue that discussion with that.
Point of clarification here, so are we trying to just knock out indoor vaping and then go ahead and take that to the full mayor commission and then the LRC contemplate additional changes, or are we trying to just?
I would suggest that if we get an answer from the mayor that and he wants us to move forward with that we do it all together. This seems like it'll be ready for the beginning of the meeting next time. So I'll check in soon, like within 24 hours of the mayor.
May I just ask for, while we're here, if we could maybe just go around real quick and share our thoughts on the workplaces? So we all just kind of know where we're at.
Let's go ahead and vote on the floor.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye.
And
And now let's just check in, and it may be, you're thinking it through.
Well, due to the health concerns, I feel strongly that we should go as fast as we can on the vaping, what we just made a motion for, get that voted on by the full mayor commission so that has already started in the areas that we are. I believe that moving to these other areas, if we get the latitude for that, is going to be take some time. And I hope that we can go ahead and just have what we voted on today for the rest to be enacted as soon as possible.
Can I ask for clarification on there to, educate me on how, what, taking the time, because we want to be checking in with these employers and, checking with the public on some of the people? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I wouldn't want what might be more complicated in these areas to diminish us being able to have a health improvement already.
So, and then we'll come back to that, but so if we went along with that, we could have something we would vote on, and then we just approve it at the August meeting. And, that would be ready to approve.
Yeah, and then we would be able to explain to our colleagues that the mayor has allowed us to look into other areas. Because it seems to me like some of these, I've already said what my interest was, because I'm in the health field and I feel a little bit and hospitality resonates with me as well. But I think that there's probably more that staff gathers for us, whether it's, professional organizations associated with some of these might be, we need more public input for the other spots, I think.
I agree. I think we need to be able to talk to folks in the industry and see what their thoughts are versus us trying to make a decision. I mean, we might think it's a great idea. It sounds like it's a great idea for the hotels and motels, but there might be something we're not looking at.
Commissioner, what would you like to add?
I do that too, but I guess before just thinking about the timing thing, practically speaking, we're gonna have one more LRC meeting in June. But our next voting meeting of the commission is until August.
That's right.
So are you suggesting that I guess I'm wondering, I mean, if we think we can get through this in full in the next LRC meeting in June, then we could theoretically bring the whole thing before the mayor and commission in August, right?
Then we could update what's headed.
Or are you suggesting that we try to, or are you suggesting that like the attorney draft the update to include the definition of vaping for us to vote on at the June mayor and commission meeting?
That's
No, for our next LRC meeting, we see what that looks like and vote or send it on.
Without the addition of the missing workplaces, we get that done right at the beginning of August, with the assumption that the discussion is going to take longer than, or the data gathering. So I mean, I think it's easy enough because what you're talking about is adding the word vaping in the definition in a couple of places. Then we just pull the whole thing up again and add other things if the mayor wants us to move.
So could that just appear, I guess what I'm wondering is, can that just appear under new business at our June meeting?
I think we need to see it and vote on it.
Yeah, I think we do too.
And just in the realm of moving it forward, is I think when this topic comes up that we're on agreement here, but when it gets out in the public realm, it might not be that way. And so that we can also bring up that we're not done on this topic if the mayor, or there might be enough input from the community, if the mayor isn't wanting to give us latitude, that this topic could actually give us more support for that in more areas.
And I'll add my thing in is I just have to be more son, my colleagues to go ahead and get the vaping and they got voted on in August, ready to vote on, assuming we're fine with what the attorney brings us and move forward. My gut feeling is that we have all these communities in Georgia that have already done this. We have the recommendation of the Heart Association and medical expertise. My feeling is that I would like to see us go ahead with this, but I do realize that there, the educational opportunity, just like we were talking about with the animals and the tags, that there is sort of a education part to this as well, that it might help keep off some tension and bad reaction if we give it a little while out there to sink in till September or the fall. Okay, so I will check in with the mayor on this, and the attorney's office is going to work on drafting this.
If I could speak to that, I'm not, this is your decision as how you move forward, but I mean, American Heart Association has already drafted the language. I think there's really only two changes that would have to be made, which is adding this definition of electronic smoking device, and then adding to the definition of smoking that include the use of an electronic smoking device, and then there's some other additions that they proposed that I think could be left off till later. But I'm happy to read those, and if everyone's comfortable, I don't know if you feel comfortable approving it based on my reading of it, and then I can prepare it for June, but that's not.
How about you read us the changes so we can see how small they are?
Yes.
And then we'll see if the committee feels the same, different.
Move fast.
Okay.
Go hanging. So the definition of electronic smoking device that they've provided, it says, means any product containing or delivering nicotine or any other substance intended for human consumption that can be used by a person in any manner for the purpose of inhaling vapor or aerosol from the product. The term includes any such device, whether manufactured, distributed, marketed, or sold as an e-cigarette, e-cigar, e-pipe, e-hookah, dab rig, or vape pen, or under any other product name or descriptor. So that's the definition of electronic smoking device.
Dang.
And then we would change smoking. So currently all smoking, the definition of smoking means inhaling, exhaling, burning, or carrying any lighted tobacco product, including cigarettes, cigars, and pipe tobacco. We could just add after that, smoking includes the use of an electronic smoking device, which creates an aerosol or vapor in any manner or in any form, or the use of any oral smoking device for the purpose of circumventing the prohibition of smoking in this article.
Love it. I move to amend our current ordinance, which I believe is Title 4, Section 4-3-3.
4-3-4. Yes, chapter 4-3.
To include those two amendments and to bring it for the full Mayor Commission for consideration in June.
I'll second that. When are we voting in June?
June 6th.
Oh, that's June 6th. That one already. Adding to this already big agenda?
Why not?
It's,
Make,
there's no.
what's better than big besides being big?
Yeah, I pull back my second. I want it to go through the full cycle, not be dropped in. We already didn't.
We've got
Stuff dropped into
the
that
budget
agenda.
in June 6th, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So good.
I'm not seconding that.
We would have an opportunity to speak to it in tonight's agenda setting if we.
We've got so many things already on.
We're gonna be here.
I have another second?
I agree. I think we need to get it passed. We've got a lot of stuff.
Next full cycle, for the next full.
June 6th.
I substitute motion that we take what was just recited to us to update the ordinance for the next full agenda cycle before the mayor
Second of
commission.
that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we're going with that wording. We've agreed to push that forward to the full cycle. It'll come back here and it'll be brought up to the agenda setting meeting.
So it doesn't need to come back to this group, right?
No.
We just moved it through.
Okay.
And then pending discussion with the mayor, we might come back to revisit the other half of this discussion.
Yeah.
All
As
right.
well as, does it sound like there's also other suggestions the American Heart Association brought with regards to vaping that we can consider at the same time?
Yes, there are other small text changes, not small over here, but there are other changes that you all may want to consider.
All right. I will check in with the mayor on that. All right. So we now have, we are on top of it. It's 2:04. Now we have a couple of things to consider here. We do have we won't be discussing this. We may be discussing some of it. Depending on what the mayor says in terms of expanding, but not this text amendment we're talking about. We're not talking,
Thank you.
we may be talking about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We may be talking about that at the beginning. We're returning to this discussion of the expanding the smoke-free ordinance per my discussion with the mayor. That may happen or may not. Otherwise, we have an updating sign ordinance to consider, digital signage and billboards, and sending related recommendation to the planning commission. And we now have another assignment to review and update the neighborhood traffic management program. Assistant Attorney Lee Jones.
I'm an attorney.
Big day for Nikki.
Where do we want to go with this assistant manager?
I say we go with the billboards because I was next in the queue and I've already prepped Director Griffin for this conversation. And as we were talking about it, he reminded me that the LRC Planning Commission have kicked this idea around quite a bit in the past. And I want to put my former planner hat on, and as a former sign administrator when I was a young buck, this is a very contentious issue. Well worth us talking about it. And I'm sure that we can, get to a point where, at least this group is comfortable with it, to some extent. But after talking with Director Griffin and having gone through this myself, I know that this is not an easy one to tackle. So I would suggest that Director Griffin come at the next meeting and talk about the history,
Just correct.
what we've done. And then talk about some of the iterations that have been sent up to the full mayor commission. Because that's my understanding, that has actually gone through committee and received approval from committee, but did not get a vote at full commission. So that would be my recommendation.
Can somebody give me a little insight as to why this is here? Does anybody know?
Because mayor signed.
I guess we can wait.
I might.
You have a little,
Yeah, I don't know per se why it's here this moment, but I think one other thing that we want to talk about is that there's just a lot of legal challenges related to sign ordinances. And I know there's been kind of talk about the fact that we probably do need to revisit it after the U.S. Supreme Court decision Reed versus Gilbert in 2015. And I'm happy to kind of give you guys a brief overview of that if you'd like to know kind of what that stands for, but fundamentally, sign ordinances are much more complex following that case, and so that's kind of a challenge that I think makes this pretty.
And we could have that at the next meeting.
We did get an email some time ago from our former county attorney, Bill Berryman, representing, company, the main company in town, main game in town, Will Honor. And, I think it even included like a suggested ordinance revision. I don't know how similar that looks to the one that was brought through committee before, but if I had to guess, I would guess that probably influenced the mayor. I think we should, but I'm not the mayor.
yeah. Well, when I've had exposure to this discussion, informally or formally, on it was a lot of the visual pollution of the digital signs. But that said, I don't appreciate us having a digital sign at the Classic Center. It looks like I do as I say, not as I do. So I'm more interested in us being consistent with what we as a unified government does and what we are saying for our community. That would be a part that I would like to clarify. And then the distracted driver thing bothers me because of the way they change when you're in communities where the signs are changing. It's a distraction and a public safety issue for me with that. But if there's something from 2015 that we can clarify with what we have, I guess it's just time to look at it, and then we can factor in these other presentations of us being old-fashioned billboards.
And Commissioner Culver?
So, question, I'm glad you brought it up about the Classic Center. So, having what they have across a scrolling marquee, that's considered digital also?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be incorporated in this?
They're sort of grandfathered in somehow, somewhere.
Yeah, and perhaps we could get some background on that. If
When we get the history lesson, we might be able to learn more.
any kind of exception that had any for that.
We ought to look at the, what Bill Berryman said, because if I remember correctly, part of what they're proposing is for everyone that they, well, first of all, I think the light bulb technology's changed. I'm not sure. I think it has. So it might not be as much light pollution. We need to look at that, what they proposed. And I think what they were saying is for everyone they put up, they're taking down another sign, a stationary sign. Is that right?
Amortization is what we call that, and I don't know if that's what Mr. Berryman was suggesting, but I would say that I'm looking at an email right now. This issue was created by Mr. Berryman, and the Classic Center was a part of that too. So that was all contemplated when the mayor brought this forward. But I do remember something to that effect, Mr. Culver. And I can make sure. Actually, I'm looking at who's on this. We're all on this. Everybody in this room.
Yeah, the mayor assigned this topic. We followed up with so it was an email from April 19th.
Okay.
It's titled, Committee Assignments and Exhibits. he provided that ordinance that was drafted by Bill Berryman as an exhibit to this topic, just as a starting place. And he was pretty explicit in that.
Commissioner Wright and Commissioner Rule.
Well, and on that example I gave, especially with the arena, we all have seen already the lighting for it. And it's not so much light pollution with time of day and light, but more so the active eye distraction of it. But if the Classic Center has a way of being grandfathered or not involved with it, we need to have it clarified if that's also going to be supersized back on the arena, if they would continue to do that. And it could be that we're time for 21st century. I think that I had learned at one time, and we'll learn with our next class, our next session, is that the cost of the billboard, they're not necessarily as timely. You know how we'll have an event and it's still up there on the billboard because of the time it takes to put it up there. So sustainability wise and the oldness of the old billboards, it could be that we can learn that it's time for us to do it modern. Amber alerts, I think, also can be used on digital billboards.
And Commissioner Rule.
A couple of things. One is, my understanding, although we'll get into this more because it sounds like it's that the proposed ordinance that was given us by Attorney Berryman would replace 2 for 1. So take down 2 billboards or 2 for 1. And I think there's some stipulations that we put in place about like the angle of the light, so it has to be downward, and limits on that. I think the term uses foot candles. We can only so many foot candles above how we what's it called, ambient light, right? I'd be curious what the definition of ambient light is, I guess, that would work. So there's probably ways to maybe make this, I guess some of the concerns we already know, but a concern I have that I'd love for the attorney's office to speak with is we've received a draft ordinance from an attorney on behalf of a client who, as I understand it, owns most, if not all, of the billboards in town, that proposes that the only way you can get one is to remove 2 and replace it with 1. And I'm wondering if there are legal concerns about us helping a private company essentially retain a monopoly on their industry in our town. So any insight the attorney's office can provide on the legal appropriateness of us taking action, especially if it is stemming from this advocacy effort from a private entity, considering, and I'd like some confirmation, but I think they own close to all, if not every billboard in Athens. But if that's the case, I'm curious about us taking actions, working from their recommendations and helping them further corner the market.
Yeah, I'm happy to look at it. I have not reviewed it yet. I think even Brian would be better able to speak to some of those concerns. Because I think the reality is that the limits on how many you can have on a unit or on a lot are probably a large part to deal with driver distraction, things like that. So that might be the focus of removing 2 and having 1, is that there'd be less intense use of that, or possible distractible device. That's a weird way to describe that.
Yeah.
But so there may be good reasons for that. We're happy to look at it and consult with you.
I like what you said about being able to put Amber alerts up there.
That was one of the, but again, have the pros and the cons, the good and the bad with it.
We can maybe figure something out where we need to put out other community announcements.
Well, if I just a word of caution, so the Reed versus Gilbert case that kind of changed all of this made it really clear that governments can't be considering the content of the speeches, because if you're doing that, there's a risk that basically you're discriminating against someone based on their First Amendment rights, because you're saying you can use it for this kind of speech, but not this kind of speech. So we really want to stick to things that are more objective and based on like the type of signage generally applicable to.
Right.
Which they could be used for good purposes like that, but I would encourage us to not get into that.
Well, and as you reiterate that's everything from chalkboards on the sidewalk to displays in the window, which is why we've got, yep, all that. So, but our charge is the billboard sign ordinance, not the sign ordinance. So, but if you will obviously keep reminding us that the content cannot be, legislated, so that, and if we're allowing now a full color display of something that we don't know what's gonna be up there. It's just more of what we don't know or cannot regulate.
I could ask y'all to do a little homework between now and then, to look around town to see where the billboards actually are. You might be surprised. We have a lot of billboards.
Yeah, we do.
We have a lot of off-premise signage. And if they're talking about removing some, that would be something to want to come.
That was the one thing that piqued my interest, was they were taking out signs.
Yeah, because if we put two contents rotated on.
It ended up being less signs.
Carol, one in particular is the huge one that's like almost ground level, go with that triangle between Oak Street and the Coney Street that's now up your Barstow area. I mean, that one's like right, I mean, it's like, not, I don't even think it's gonna hold, it's basically like right on the ground, the trees. But.
And there's some, Lamar's got some digital billboards in Oconee.
Oh, yeah.
Run it through, so I want to see what one looks like at night.
316.
Oh, the one coming off of 316. Get all that.
Yeah, we probably could have been Starbucks.
It's very distracting. It's cool. Well, can you say, let me stay there for the very left. All right, so the next thing here, I think we've discussed this, is just getting a quorum for our next meeting, and I'm just taking a look here, and it looks would be June.
June 1st, if you were sticking with,
What's today? That's only.
June,
That's-
if you're sticking with the original intent of having the first Thursday.
Oh, for some reason it's already on my calendar. No, so that was May. So that seems really soon.
It does.
Brad can be prepared to speak to it because he's done it so much. If y'all, if you want to stay on schedule, that's totally fine. I'll defer to you. But Brad will be prepared to speak to it because he's done it so much, and I can't speak for sure.
No, I'm really comfortable with these, so I think that's fine.
If you want to get back to our first Thursday schedule,
That sounds good.
that's right. And then that's one less meeting later on in the month, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's right. And there's no, that's the first day, so there's no Tuesday meeting then.
We've got an extra.
Wonderful. So that do we have a quorum then? All of us can be there?
Yes.
Okay. So our next meeting will be on June 1st at 1 p.m. here, and we will be discussing this digital sign and billboard ordinance with an update from the planning department and the attorney's office.
And will you be sure to have the mayor's input on the vaping and location things? And then, because that could give us
Right.
a little bit more to know what we.
I will definitely do that.
Yeah, so would we be following up on that topic as well if he's wanting us to do that? Like, would we be getting into that discussion around?
We would know then. I think we will know then.
Yeah, let me see what I can get from him. We'll either have because we have to, then I will consult with, assistant manager Jones about that, because we do have to review and update the neighborhood traffic management program, and we can see if we think we have time to do anything else on that meeting in June.
The AT&T is probably going to be something that's going to take us a good,
Yeah.
3 meetings,
Yeah.
I would think.
Right, so I'm gonna say if there's any kind of intro that can be.
Sure.
From the transportation, just start us off.
Sure.
And then we have several.
Review, maybe intro there?
Yeah,
Is that what you're
yeah.
thinking? All right, let me reach out to them.
And then we have that to review in Sarah's wonderful minutes when we come back in August.
Right. That sounds good. Sounds like a good solid break in there, and with all these topics. I don't know that we need to start another one yet, but
About to juggle 4 balls?
I don't know. Biden, with Biden. Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, that'd be wonderful.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll see you all at,
See you all over.
Absolutely not.